Hello and welcome to another edition of Grandstanders Live. I'm your host, Scott Kerman, and I'm joined by my usual cohorts, the Professor Russ Stevens, Uncle Joe McLaughlin, and he's JP's first son, Tim Hoey. Well, we have another great show for you tonight, so boys, let's get it started. Well, first of all, we start with the Boston Celtics. We have to go back before we can go forward, boys. Look, we love Game 7s. But we sure love Game 6s when they could have been eliminated and they go to play in an away game in Milwaukee. Then they come home, wipe out the Milwaukee Bucks. The Boston Celtics deserve to give them a ton of credit for what they've already succeeded in. Milwaukee Bucks were a tough team. Giannis is one of the best players in the history of the NBA.
But they also beat them. I think they beat them in that series 5-2. They should have won that game 5 if Marcus doesn't just go crazy there. They win that game. They won 5-2.
Let's not be throwing my man Marcus under the bus, Joe. Come on.
No one in the history of sports choked as badly as Marcus did.
Well, it all came down to not getting the rebound on the free throw. That was it. That was the game.
It was after that he went crazy, though. Then he went crazy, and then he went crazier.
I think we have to take the good with the bad with Marcus. Like some of those efforts turn positive, but sometimes they go bad too.
Wouldn't we have loved him last night in that third quarter, maybe just to provide a little?
See, I liked it because my boy Scotty here has to realize how valuable my main man Marcus really is to the team, right?
There's no question to me. Marcus Boyd was sure missed yesterday. And I have to be honest, it was missed on the defensive end. I mean, at some point, Marcus Smart is taking Jimmy Butler defensively.
You're going to have to literally stab and shoot, which he looks like happens to him 6 times a game. But you're gonna have to kill Marcus Smart to beat him. You're gonna have to kill him.
But that's the problem, Russ, with Marcus Smart, right? Because he plays in such a reckless abandon, he gets hurt a lot.
Yeah, he plays like a free safety in the NFL, right? He's always hitting somebody or getting hit and lying on the ground. But it's what Joe said. It's part of the package, right? I mean, I think Marcus played very well in the Bucks series overall. I think he was one of the reasons why they won it, right?
Absolutely, no question.
There are a few times in that series, other than the end of that game 5, where he just sort of settled them down. You could see things veering off course, and Marcus would make a play because he's not looking for his offense first. He's looking to set other guys up, and I think that made a big difference in the Bucks series.
He hit some timely threes in that series.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy when they get behind 8-10 points, he will hit the next shot coming down. That's just his MO. And if that clock ever runs, the 24-second clock runs down, Marcus always hits that shot. No matter what, it's this kind of and also when you take into account the Jason Tatums and the Jalen Browns who missed a lot of free throws in these playoffs, Marcus has been very good at the line.
So Scotty, would you say, like we've been giving each other the business about Marcus for a long time, but in all honesty, are you now past the point in which you think Marcus could regress back into old Marcus, or do you feel like now he is who he is and this is what we should expect from forward?
Wait, can I jump in here for a second? Russell, I was praying that you were going to pin Scotty down.
But I'm not pinning up. But I don't mean this. I'm not trying to do a hot take.
I want you to pin Scotty down.
No, I'm not. But I'm not.
I still have PTSD, guys. I still think at clutch times, why is Marcus taking the shot? That's what they want him to do. However, sometimes
they want him to pass, but Marcus won't pass sometimes.
No, but that's the rotation. He doesn't force it as much. He doesn't play hero ball like he used to. There are times that, like Jason Tatum said in game 5 in the last play in the inbounds, that there were guys not doing their job. That's why Marcus had to take that. He drove to the basket and he got it blocked. Yeah. But he said there was guys in that inbound play weren't doing their job. That's stuff that we don't see.
I'll tell you what, Marcus has the kahunas to do what needs to be done when other people are afraid to do it.
Yeah. I felt like that was Tatum throwing Jalen under the bus. Had to be, right?
Well, and he could have thrown Marcus under the bus on the next play on the inbounds.
Yeah.
When he was wide open and Marcus dribbled right into a double team trap that he should have known was going to be there and trying to make the hero ball shot.
I think it's pretty clear right now. The biggest Marcus hater in this group is Joe McLaughlin. Joe has not said one nice thing. Joe, since we started,
I would have loved to have him instead of Peyton Pritchard.
Not one.
I would have loved to have had him instead of Peyton Pritchard covering Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler was just licking his chops every time he came into the game.
Look,
He couldn't keep him.
we can all agree, guys, that no matter win or lose, every one of these playoff games, we're going to mention Marcus Smart in the top two things that we got.
Okay.
He's one of the most important players on the team. He's just one of those guys.
Okay,
He was
but
important last night.
because Scotty, I want to pin you down right now. Trade him or keep him at the end of the year.
No, you have to keep Marcus Smart off.
Oh, okay. You've seen the light, Scotty. You've seen the light.
No, Timmy, his value is quite high now.
Yeah.
But you
That's
know,
a very nice contract.
yeah, it just proves, the whole big rumor was that they might have been able to acquire with DeAndre Ayton when he in the draft, the second round pick in the draft, and now all of a sudden it looks like that the Phoenix is trying to shop him out of town. So the whole idea of prospects or draft guys, the most proven guys, the guys you want the most, are the ones who've already played in the NBA.
Right now, would you trade Marcus Smart if you knew you were going to get one of the top 3 picks in the draft?
Wow, that's a great question.
I don't follow those top 3.
Well, you got that 7'3" guy who's come out of the Gonzaga.
Skinny to me
Well, so did Giannis and so did Durant.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great question, Timmy. I don't know. I don't know enough about the draft. I don't know if Russ, do you have anything to say?
The thing about Marcus is he's the right age for these guys. He's the right complement to Brown and Tatum. He's on a good contract.
Yeah.
I don't think you do it. Like I just think there's too much risk.
Yeah, that's
Especially if Al goes next year and he's gone. You've got everyone's under the age of 25 on that team. You need some veteran leadership.
Well, I'm telling you something. You're getting leadership from the coaching position. Udoka is becoming this playoffs everything that we could ever have dreamed of, especially when they had played poorly last night. And each guy, as they go by, he's cussing them out.
Yeah, it's pretty fun to watch.
I mean, he's the black version of the White Shadow. I mean, this guy he's something out of Central Cast.
They would have ignored Brad Stevens if he was yelling.
Oh my God, he tore into Tatum. The first guy was Tatum, and he let him have it. But what happened was then Marcus Smart started yelling at them, and that kind of put the pressure off Udoka on a timeout too.
Yeah,
and I think Udoka signed off
Look,
of that.
He's still a fresh voice, right? So they have not had any time to tune him out, right? He's still new. So when he tears into somebody, their ears are perked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think he's got the street cred to do some yelling. I do.
Yeah, I think, right. He's been around. He's coached these guys too in tournaments and stuff. And, obviously cut his teeth in San Antonio. Last night's game was a tale of two halves. The first half, the Celtics could not have played any more perfect for their personnel.
The best of times and the worst of times, that's for sure.
They shot the lights out of it. Rob Williams looked like the best player in the NBA.
Look, they shot 60% in the first half with very low turnovers. And the story of the third quarter were the turnovers. They just got rattled. They started pressing, and they probably a combination of being rattled and fatigued just sort of collided, and they just had a bad stretch. But you know what, Joe, I think you said it in the text last night. That team still hung in there. They could have packed it in. They went down by 12, 14 points. You could have easily just said, screw it, we'll lose by 30. Who cares? It's just, we don't have two guys. And they
forever, there were 2 turnovers and 2 3-pointers away from being right in the game.
Yeah, they cut it from 20.
In the last 5 minutes, it seemed like they couldn't turn that corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were exhausted. exhausted, Russ, and that was a great point. All of a sudden you had Pritchard and Neesmith just heaving up desperation threes, and you're trying to get back on that, and that wasn't going to work. Now, we talk about Neesmith and Russ Stevens. James Young is probably the number one most hated athlete in Russ Stevens' sports world. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
He is the Brian Nava in the Stevens.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take the Carl Everetts off the table. The bad human beings will take them off the table. But just guys, James Young is the worst.
But you put Neesmith and Young. Maybe it's just frustration of the game. I understand the heat of the moment. You put them in the same sentence last night.
I did.
I thought Neesmith played really well in the first half.
He's a one-trick pony. All he does is he hurls his body around the court, which God bless him, but he knows he doesn't have to play 40 minutes. He's only going to be in there for, like, if Jason Tatum was only going to play 5 minutes, he'd hurl himself around the court too.
I know, it's true.
Well, that's, I think, what he's in there for, to do that and raise the energy level.
Hey,
The guy was drafted to shoot the basketball
Right.
into the hoop.
He's not doing what he was.
He is the best, worst shooter I have ever seen in my entire life.
Speaking of hurling yourself around the court, did Tice's block on that jam, even though it wasn't as timely as Adebayo's, but that was equivalent to Bam Adebayo.
It looked almost exactly the same. You're right, Jim.
I don't understand. Did they take that camera out just for when the Celtics played the Heat?
I think so.
That's the only time I ever seen that view before. That was 2 years ago. Now they do it again.
They had the extra cameras for the playoffs.
That's a fantastic view. Wow, they should keep that all the time. You start to realize the talent of these guys.
They don't want to pay another cameraman.
Look, Tice was out of position in the sense that he would put him on the bench normally against Bam Adebayo, and he wasn't because Horford was not playing. Just breaking news from the Grandstanders live desk: Al Horford's not playing tomorrow. Mark Smart hopefully is playing. Is that all we need? Is just getting Marcus back to be able to win tomorrow?
It's a huge help, but Al's not going to be back for the third game either.
Really? That's not good, guys. That hurts.
He tested positive, and now he's got symptoms. So he's not like in that asymptomatic one where you just where you'll be all right.
That's bad news.
So I had read that he asked to be tested.
Yeah, he must have had
symptoms. He had symptoms.
He had symptoms and he asked to be tested. So I mean, all of a sudden, even if he were test negative, you don't know what kind of condition he's in.
I'll tell you what, too. I know 4 or 5 guys the last couple of weeks, friends of mine, who got this latest version of COVID, and it's not that Omicron one that I got where I had sniffles for a day and then I felt good. This one's knocking people down for a week or so.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone has different symptoms, but the few people that I know that got it, they were laid out for a week.
We've all had a second booster, I hope, huh?
Yeah, that definitely a problem. This sucks, So this obviously, even if they didn't test, Al would have been down because he'd just been physically ill.
And it could get worse, Scotty, because Brian Windhorst has been reporting on ESPN that numerous, not 1 or 2, numerous Celtic staffers have tested positive. Now, if the staff is testing positive, the players are going to probably start testing.
Okay, what do they do? I mean, if all
you do like the NFL, you don't ask questions that you don't want to know the answer to.
I mean, are we
If
gonna?
there's no symptoms, you keep playing.
So you're telling me now, if Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have symptoms, they can't play. Are we really going to play the game?
I don't know.
No. That if you don't have symptoms, don't test.
No, I think Scotty was asking, does the NBA, at what point in time would the NBA delay a game? And it's a really good question, Scotty. Like if 4 of the Celtic starters go out because of COVID, my guess is the NBA would create some sort of delay.
You have to, right?
I would think so. I mean, it's the integrity of the competition, right? And they've done this before, and I don't know why they wouldn't do it now. This is the
Guys,
Eastern Conference Championship.
I'll bring this up. Those guys are out there. Al wasn't just with the Celtics. Oh, well, he hasn't faced Miami. He hasn't faced Miami yet. But if this was against the Bucks, all those guys would have been exposed too.
Yeah.
It almost makes me wish we had played one game against the Heat before he got tested.
Look, I think, Scotty, you asked whether, can they win without Al? I think they can if they have Smart back, because they've got a chance of stopping Jimmy Butler. They're just going to they cannot afford for Jaylen Brown to play like he played last night if they're going to beat these guys shorthanded. Like they've got to get good games out of Tatum and Brown together at the same time for as long as they're missing guys in the lineup, period.
I'll tell you what, Jaylen Brown, Jaylen Brown disappears for games. He freaking, one of the games I went to the Celtics against Milwaukee, he was the worst player on the court the entire game. Turnovers, missing shots, missing free throws. He really, when he is bad, he's very bad.
Yep. When he has some of the worst handle for a top player in the NBA that I've ever seen in the last 30, 40 years. He's a terrible dribbler.
He can't break people down with that dribble, and he shouldn't try.
Yeah, Miami's a very well-coached team, obviously. They're a very smart team. And you saw that in the second half where they were stealing the ball at will against the guys. There was a couple of three-play stretch where this just looked like they were a bunch of high schoolers. Celtics got to clean that stuff up.
Yeah, they've got to. They obviously need to. They obviously need to take care of the ball. That goes without saying. The one thing, it's like turnovers in football and turnovers in basketball. Because they lead turnovers in basketball, live ball turnovers lead to fast break points and the momentum shifting. But Timmy's right. I mean, Brown will have a bad game and he'll be in a fog for the whole game. But man, it's the one thing you can count on is they'll bounce back the next one. Like very rarely puts two bad games together in a row. So can they win tomorrow night? If Tatum and Brown play well tomorrow night and Robert Williams can play 25 minutes, we can win that game.
You know what I'm going to say is I went to that first Milwaukee game with the Celtics, and the Celtics looked like they didn't belong on the court with them. I got to be honest. We were used to playing the Nets with no height. They could go to the rim without any worries in the world. The first game against Milwaukee, it was a completely different, they had Lopez in there and Giannis. There was a lot of height at the rim in Portis. It's almost like the Celtics need a game to, like each of our three opponents here have been so dramatically different.
Yeah.
In the teams that, in the chemistry of the teams that we're going against, it's like the Celtics have completely changed how they're playing for each opponent.
But it's so tough, Timmy. All of a sudden, within the, a few hours before the game, you lose your two top players. I mean, all of a sudden you take a Hero and Butler out of that game, and the Celtics would have blown them out. I thought the Celtics hung in there, and I'm actually still very optimistic about this series.
Yeah.
The Al news came just before game time. It must have been a shock that all of a sudden you're down two starters. Takes a little of the wind out of your sails. But I got to say, to that turnover question, they had just completed 11 games straight where they had kept the turnovers to a minimum. Better than they had all year. The 4 Nets games and the 7 Bucks games, I think, were probably below their season average. They did better than they did this season.
The Celtics, between the turnovers and Jimmy Butler, they gave him 118 points last night. They haven't given up 100. I don't think they've given up 118 points in the playoffs. Don't you think, Scotty, that they should be able to stop Jimmy Butler just as well as they stopped Giannis? Like, shouldn't they be able to figure out build a wall and stop Jimmy Butler from getting to the rim without fouling, just like they did with Giannis? Like, I would expect that to be the next.
I think it would be easier just by Jimmy's game, the way that, with Marcus, and then pin him to the baseline, so then Rob can take over.
Yeah, but that's a personnel thing too, guys. And rest, that's a personnel thing, And you have to have Horford and Smart.
Yeah, you need
Oh,
Smart.
it's better to have a couple of big guys down low.
I mean, you guys, we're saying, Russ, and I don't mean to pin you to the wall here. Is we're saying we can do okay without Horford. Where would we have been without Horford in the Milwaukee series?
Oh, screwed. Yeah, screwed.
Look, I still think, but you add Rob in, and Rob is obviously very effective in a series like this where he wasn't against the Bucks. It wasn't a good matchup. But if you put Rob in there, if we have all our guys, say Horford, even game 3, even game 4, and we're only down 2, I think we can run 3 straight against this team if we have all our players.
Yeah, I think we can.
And so if we can just steal one of the next 2 games and Al comes back, I still think we win this series.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not gonna write this series off if we lose tomorrow night.
Yeah, losing the first game or even down 2-0 is an insurmountable deficit.
Now, I didn't catch a single broadcast, national broadcast, ESPN or Fox. What was the take nationally after this game? Does anybody know? Like, were they burying the Celtics?
No, they acknowledged that the Celtics had 2 guys out, and they had a bad quarter. And Jimmy Butler's been playing really well. I mean, right now, he's right up there with one of the best players in the playoffs with Luka and Jason Tatum.
They said
he's been averaging over 30 points a game all the way through the playoffs. He's been killing everyone.
People said that was the best game of his life that he played last night.
Yeah.
But look,
the Celtics made him look good too.
Brad Stevens has a role right now. Of course, he's not that kind of personality, but he needs to start talking to the press and stuff and say, what are we doing with Jimmy Butler? Every time he gets touched, is that what it's going to be? Because he was getting the king treatment last night. He was King James last night. Anytime he went to the basket, he got fouled. Jimmy Butler does not deserve that.
No, he doesn't.
And he's a fantastic free throw shooter.
Yeah, he really is.
The guy's he's a tough player, but he's not that good.
Well, I think the refs were trying to, even it out a little, and they went a little overboard there.
Who was Butler with before he was with Miami?
The Sixers.
Minnesota and
Sixers.
He got run out of town in both places, right?
Well, the thing about Philly was they had a choice to keep him or Tobias Harris, and they chose Tobias Harris, which was a really, really, really bad decision.
I guess
they're paying Tobias a max contract now.
Really bad.
In Minnesota, he shot his way out of town. He was a real jerk.
You put him on that Philly team right now, they'd be a dangerous squad.
That's what Embiid said at the press conference after the game. He said, I wish Jimmy Butler was still here. Butler, when he left the court at the final game, said, you kept Tobias Harris over me. You kept Tobias Harris over me.
I would have said the same thing.
So it wasn't personal at all for Butler. And that's just the worst decision. Tobias Harris, he's terrible. I never fear Tobias Harris when he's on the court again.
You don't.
I mean,
the rap on Butler was he couldn't win the big games, right?
The rap on Butler
when he was with Philly. I mean,
he was very temperamental, and he showed up when he wanted to. Jimmy
Butler's an ass ache. I mean, he got into a fight with Spoelstra, his coach, 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
he's considered a coach killer.
Yeah, he's a tough personality. And that's those kind of guys. They're talented, but they're just going to keep on going across the league because of they shoot themselves out of town. But look, Timmy, they went to the NBA Finals, as we know, through us 2 years ago, and that was a lot because of Butler.
Oh yeah, he killed us last time.
Yeah.
All right, boys, we didn't get the chance because when we last talked, we were not playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. We need predictions, boys. You already know what happened in one game, but we know that means nothing in this series. It's like losing the first game is like a 4-point lead at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the series, you forgot who won game 1. It just isn't how it works. It's not important. Who wins the series? We go to JP's first son, Tim Hoey.
You're not going to like it. I think this Miami team is just like a little tougher than the Celtics are. They seem to have something. They got a bunch of Marcus Smarts with more talent on the team, I think. And Jimmy Butler, I don't know if we have an answer for him. And especially if Al Horford's going to be out. I see Miami winning this in 6 or 7.
Wow. All right, Uncle Joe.
Oh, Tim, don't be such a pessimist. You were the optimist last night.
I hope I'm wrong.
I like the Celtics in 7, and I like your analogy. Losing game 1 is just a 4-point deficit at halftime. But the Celtics in 7, when they get everyone back and everything, they're running on all, each cylinders, it'll be all right.
The professor.
Celtics 6. I had them at 6 before the injuries. I thought they were going to lose last night, even before the injuries. I'm with you, Scotty. Look, they played 6 minutes of bad basketball last night, and that was enough to lose the game. And they basically won the rest of the night, but they had 6 just absolutely miserable minutes. If we play like we did in the first half and the fourth quarter, and you get Smart back and eventually Horford, we'll win this series.
Yeah,
Russ, what worries me is I think those 6 minutes with Miami figured out the Celtics. That's what worries
maybe,
me.
but then give Ime a chance to adjust. Let's see what happens when
He's been good at adjusting.
Yeah,
remember you said they adjusted from game 1 at the Bucks from the Nets. Let's see if they can adjust to Miami, and then maybe it'll be like this to adjust to an even tougher.
I hope so.
One underrated thing is without Smart, you start Derek White. Tyler Hero, remember, comes off the bench, right? So instead of Derek White coming into the game with Tyler Hero to guard him, you ended up basically bringing Pritchard in and trying to deal with Tyler Hero with Pritchard and Jaylen Brown, and it didn't go well.
Yeah, I'm not impressed with the Heat. I have to be honest with you. I think that the X factor is Rob. When you put Rob in, and remember, this team was just fantastic, record-setting. And then I think you're going to see the record-setting team. If you have Horford, Smart, and Rob Williams on that team, I think that once you have them all together, I don't think the Heat win another game. So it's just a matter of when Horford comes back. Horford comes back game 3, even if we're down 2, we win in 6. Horford comes back in game 4, we win in 7. We're going to win this series. The X factor is Rob staying healthy and Horford coming back. I mean, this is COVID. Oh, I thought we were done this stuff.
I know.
Is there any update on Rob when he went out with that bad cramp?
Yeah, just a cramp. But you can see how fragile he is.
Well, he always has been fragile. He's the Jacoby Ellsbury of the Celtics.
But
he's like a fine-tuned machine,
Well, anyone who jumps like him, you're going to have bad hips, bad back, bad knees.
But Timmy, we saw this team, and Russ, that was a great point. Just a few weeks ago, the Heat turned on each other. It was a mutiny in front of all of us. You can feel the chemistry of that team. They're ready to look and start pointing fingers quickly. And Jimmy Butler, as their leader, is not a leader. He's the one who's got plenty of fingers to point. So any adversity with this team, and I think they roll over. So it's just a matter of like we said, you had to stay healthy during these playoffs. And if we stayed healthy, we'd win a championship. And now, freaking COVID. I have to be honest with you. I can't believe we're still dealing with this crap.
I know. It's still hanging around.
Going to get a shot. I guess he didn't.
No, Joe, the guys that I know that got it all just had their boosters.
But Al has never been.
You're not going to die from this. No professional NBA player or any of the staff is going to die from COVID right now.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's not going to happen. I'm all Mr. Vaccine, but this is not a threat. This is not a public health threat anymore to these guys. They should be allowed to play. Now, in the case of Al Horford, he wouldn't have been able to play anyways. He's not feeling good.
Right.
So that's the whole thing. I mean, he's sick.
There's actually a flu that's going around that's more powerful than the COVID going around right now.
Well, that's what they think Adoka has because he canceled his press conference today.
Yeah, there's a vicious flu going around too. I know several people who have that.
Well, hopefully it gets equally distributed to the Miami Heat players.
Be out there breathing on them.
And but just again, but look, before we leave the Celtics, Kyle Lowry not being on the Heat is a huge loss for them too. I do want to mention that.
It is. Yep.
He's the very least equivalent to us not having Marcus Smart. Would you agree?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, you can see where the Celtics should have exploited that lack of a point guard last night.
Yeah. All right, we have to go to the Red Sox. We just have to. We're season ticket holders. We have to. Show is called the Grandstanders.
Okay, I'll just say this. I've called 25 customers today for my tickets tomorrow night. I didn't have a ticket.
Russ had the line of the night last night when I asked Russ if he was at the game because it was his night. And what did you say?
I said I gave my tickets to my nephew, the poor bastard.
Now, every time I text the customer, I preface by saying, I know they suck, but do you want these tickets?
Yeah, they're going to get offended, right, Timmy? Yeah, look, as bad as it could be last night, there was a record set in the second inning where the Astros of all teams, hit 5 home runs in 1 inning.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a friend text me. He said, "How the hell did they leave him in for that?" And it's pretty obvious. Like he got out of the first inning with 5 pitches.
Yeah,
it wasn't like anyone was warming up. You could not see this coming. So he you can get someone warmed up fast enough to come in cold to replace Evaldi. I mean, the guy will hurt himself. So. I think it was freaky. Evaldi's been good this year. I mean, he's a good pitcher. This is what's happening to this team this year.
Hey, Houston brought the trash can with them from Houston.
All I could think about was it was Chris Sale, and I'm so glad we didn't sign Evaldi right now because who knows? I just want to mention about Chris Sale. I saw a headline yesterday. Chris Sale started to play catch. Now that's Nana Chrissy. If you're scoring at home, he started playing catch again. Catch.
It's ridiculous.
Well, he might get another non-baseball related injury.
Worst contract in the history of Boston sports?
I mean, it's trending in that.
Sandoval right there with him.
Sandoval was probably number 1 now, but give Chrissy a chance.
He's gaining on him.
Now, are we blaming Hein Bloom here, Scotty, or is
he didn't sign
No. But I mean, for what's going on right now, I mean, does he think that Boston is Tampa? We're going to sit back and live through 2 or 3 rebuilding years? Is that what he thinks?
Hein Bloom. Yes, Hein, I trust. I sent you a tweet right before we started the show, and the Red Sox outfield has a total of 4 home runs, batting under 200. They're the worst outfield in baseball, and that is, I know obviously, Kiki hasn't played well. Verdugo had a nice start, hasn't played well, but that guy in right field, that's all.
Now, I just want to bring this up as we were sitting here chuckling about what morons Milwaukee was to sign Jackie Bradley Jr. to that contract.
Yeah.
And he's our freaking right fielder now, our everyday right fielder. He's ours.
In the top 5 home run leaders for the National League, there's a guy named Hunter Renfroe. Maybe you heard of him. And Kyle Schwarber. Maybe you heard of him. Why don't we get players like that? Right? I mean,
I blame Hein. This guy.
Pay more for JBJ.
So should we start going to Worcester to watch our team? I mean, that's what he thinks we should do, right?
Yeah, Russ. What's the plan? Can you just tell me? Because I don't know what it is.
Honestly, I think that they were surprised that they won last year. It wasn't really on the agenda. They were happy they won because it allows them to take a step back this year and continue on this sort of rebuild the farm system and turn. I think the Red Sox, honestly, I don't think the Red Sox want to be the Tampa Bay Rays. I think the Red Sox want to be the Dodgers, which is the Dodgers have an incredible farm system and they spend into the salary tax, into the luxury tax every year. I think that's what the Red Sox want to build. I really do. I think it's going to take another couple of years to get there.
Well, Russ, I have to say, who signed Mookie Betts? So how can you compare them?
No, he's saying what he's saying to me is you get a great farm system and then you
I get that part of it. I get that part of it. But
then you go out and go hell's bells on
right.
certain positions.
Okay, but what separates the Dodgers went and paid for Mookie Betts and we didn't.
But the Red Sox don't. Well, that's entirely because Dave Dombrowski signed Chris Sale. The reason why we do not have Mookie Betts is because Dave Dombrowski gave Chris Sale the richest deal a pitcher ever got. Period. That's why.
And that might be part of the reason why we don't sign Xander Bogaerts or
so
Rafael
I think
Devers.
what they're trying to do, I think what the Red Sox are trying to do is they're trying to get that farm system to the point where they've got 4 starters every year coming up from the, who are in their first or second deals. And then they will fill in by signing, big money players. I think the Red Sox are always going to spend near the luxury tax.
Oh, I think so too. And they have.
Okay, so this year we got Trevor Story as our big signing.
Yeah.
I mean, is that how it's going to be?
No,
I think that's the kind of guy we bring in.
I think the Red Sox have a lot of money coming off the books this year. A lot. Right. And so my guess is this is sort of the reset. Look, by the way, I'm not saying I support this. I'm not like, this is what I think they want to be. I think they want to be the dog. I don't think, Dan Shaughnessy writes, they want to be the Tampa Bay Rays. The Red Sox can never get away with doing that because the Tampa Bay Rays spend $80 million a year in salary. The Red Sox are always going to be at or near the luxury tax. It's going to happen.
Look, Chaim Bloom wanted this team to be as bad as possible because near the deadline, he did not want a situation like he had last year.
Right.
He doesn't want because remember, they added another wild card team. So you could stay in this if we're 4 or 5 games out of a wild card spot during the deadline. This town's going to go for it. Be buyers. He doesn't want to be a buyer. He wants to be a seller. So he knows this team has to be really shitty. So nobody says, we've given up, you don't have to buy. And so he's done it. He knows what he's doing. I don't like the plan.
I don't like it either, Scotty. I don't,
we sellers is no fun.
With the prices that we pay, with the price, you can get into a Tampa Bay Bray game for $10 and a beer probably costs you $4 down there. It costs $18 for a beer at Fenway. And the tickets are probably the highest in the league. We deserve a contender every year.
And we don't need to be continuing to root for homegrown talent, root against them as they leave to another team. That's a responsibility we don't want anymore. We have to root against Mookie Betts now because it makes us look bad. I don't want to root against Xander Bogaerts for the next 6 years.
Yeah, look, I mean, they have to sign Devers, period. And if they don't sign Devers, then I don't even think it's worth being a Red Sox fan anymore, right? They should really make a serious effort to sign Bogaerts. But at the same time, I don't believe in signing Bogaerts for 8 years and promising that he can be the shortstop for the next 8 years for the Red Sox because that's not a good deal.
No.
Right?
I think, only 3 or 4 years would be favorable to the
They have one of the top 10 prospects in all of Major League Baseball. They just drafted last year to play shortstop in about 3 years, right? So they've just got to work that out with Xander and Scott Boras to say, we'll sign you for like whatever. We'll sign you for 4, and then you can start taking options every year. And if you want out after 4 because you want to play shortstop for the Cleveland Guardians, then have at it.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's the Guardians. I never would have been able to.
That's the problem. Will somebody else offer Xander that? That's the issue.
Yeah, he's got that personality. He's a face of an organization. So
Well, he says he's open for an extension now. He doesn't mind talking extension during the season. Devers has said he won't. But Xander says he's willing. Of course, he's playing lights out right now. He's like leading the league in batting. So he's willing to listen to offers.
Look, 6 years, $30 million a year that should pretty much get it done, you would think, right?
Yeah, give him some options after the 3rd year. If he wants to cut the cord because Mayer is coming up and Xander's not ready to shift to left field or second base, fine, give him an option. He can leave, right? But there's got to be a solution to sign Bogarts, right? He's the Patrice Bergeron of the Red Sox right now.
Sure is.
What are you doing?
Yeah, I do not want to see. And, look, he's a sturdy, big kid. Like Timmy talks about Mookie Betts being small and whether he's going to last that contract. That's not going to be a problem with Xander. He's a big kid.
He plays 150 games every year.
Yeah, that won't go well. And look, we're season ticket holders, long time ones. All of a sudden, if Russ is talking about not being a Red Sox fan, if these moves are made, Red Sox management better start listening. We love Sam Kennedy, but he can smile all he wants. But if we're out the door, he's in trouble.
I'm with Russell. If they're not willing to sign their best talent, then what's the sense of going there?
Yeah, it's not going to work out. And prospects are prospects. We saw that with Duran. We've seen it with a few other guys. Not all of them pan out. That's for damn sure, even the top ones. And now all of a sudden I'm hearing stuff about cases where he may not be up there even this year.
Yeah. Bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. I mean, it's an old saying, and it's true. Sometimes it's worth four in the bush.
So Juan Soto wants a big deal from the Nationals. The Nationals may not want to pay him.
Yeah.
You can believe it. Juan Soto is as good as you get in the Major League
Right
now. He's top 5 guy. What would you give up if you could guarantee to sign him? If it was a sign and trade deal, what would you give up as far as prospects? Would you give up Casas, York, another prospect that's not named Mayor?
No. I'd give up one of them. I don't know. I mean, maybe Casas in York, maybe. Yeah.
The Nationals probably might want, major league talent.
Yeah.
That's.
Do you have any? We have major league talent. Who is that on the team?
They might want a catcher.
They might want Vasquez. Yes, you took the words right out of my mouth.
All right, boys. I'm just going to mention.
Wait. It's not. I just can't believe. There isn't a college catcher out there in all the colleges in the United States. Catcher that isn't better than Vasquez. That's just shocking to me.
I know.
I think there's 3 catchers in the Bay State League, and that are better than Vasquez.
Jimmy hates Vasquez like
I just don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, look around. Who's the catcher for Clemson, for USC, for Alabama, for Georgia, Virginia Tech? I mean,
if they could play in the major leagues and get $20 million a year, they would be.
I know.
Playing for Clemson or USC.
I know, but is it that hard? I mean, I don't get it. It must be very, very.
I think it's a really hard position. Catchers don't become catchers good catchers in Major League Baseball until they're 25, 26, 27 years old. I just think it's got to be physically the hardest position to really learn how to play at a high level in the game.
They wear out.
It's such a stupid position to be playing from in that crouch. It's just, bad for your back, bad for your hips, bad for your knees.
That being a goalie in lacrosse, 2 positions I can't understand choosing to play.
I played
ignorance.
Hardball with no pads.
I played catcher until I got to high school, and they took one look at me and they're like, "You're not a catcher. We know what catchers look like. You do not look like a catcher."
Tom Brady was a catcher, right? Tom Brady was a catcher.
That was my first position. That was my favorite position. I
was a catcher too, Russ, because you get to be involved in every play. That's what I liked about it.
It was awesome.
Yeah, you're in every play. You're in the pitcher. That everyone else might get the ball hit to the once in a while.
You will not get bored playing catcher. You will never get bored.
You're covering first base. You're covering third base. You got to run too.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest hype for the Woo Sox home game, their 2-year history, is tonight. Brian Bello, a huge prospect. They're comparing him to a guy like Pedro Martinez. Have you ever heard of him? And Pedro says that he's like him. So all of a sudden, Bello, would you bring Bello up this season, or would you save him for next year?
I mean, Scotty, if I don't think you bring him up until the September call-ups unless you really need him. Like, just let the kid get 90, 100 innings in AAA. Bring him up in September. Give him a taste. Don't rush this kid. We're not gonna win the World Series this year.
How old is this kid?
Oh, he's like 21.
22, 23.
Yeah, don't let him get shelled by the Toronto Blue Jays and the New York Yankees and send him back, with the tail between his legs. Let him come up at his own speed.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's exciting. We have not had a homegrown pitching talent since Lester.
Evidently, he struck out the side he got 1 or 2 strikeouts in the first. He struck out the side in the second inning. Bello did.
Oh, he did already. Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy is
throwing 98 miles an hour.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, you can pencil him in to the starting rotation next year. And all of a sudden, it's very interesting. Heimblum is clearly thinking about next year already. I think he's thinking Whitlock, Hout, and Bello will be your 3 starters. I don't, Chris Sale and all the. I don't even think he thinks about that.
I have to
Maybe
ask.
he starts thinking about the bullpen then.
How's the pitcher that we let get away in free agency doing now?
You're right. He was getting shelled today when I watched it.
Yeah, he's been bad, but that was so predictable. Erod was so happy to get paid to go to a place.
You knew he wasn't going to be any good.
No,
You take him away from our manager. Our manager was the only one keeping him on level ground.
Yep.
Yeah, and
The Orioles gave him to us because they just couldn't deal with him. He's such a head case.
You have to hand it to Erod. He pitched very well in the playoffs in the last
He
game
did.
for the Red Sox.
Yeah.
He was fantastic.
Yeah.
For the Astros, and
Oh, he made a few dollars in that game, Scotty.
oh, absolutely, and he deserved him. All right,
Yeah.
go to the Patriots. It was so fun to see Mac Jones was at Game 7, and
Bob Kraft.
hands, and all of a sudden the two new stars of Boston sports. Did you enjoy that scene?
It was great. Yeah.
And,
I like him. He seems to be a good kid. He's got his head on straight. And if he improves, this year into next year, I think we're going to be pretty happy with Mac Jones.
Now, did anyone hear that troubling press conference about who's the quarterback's coach this year?
Well, we haven't had a quarterback coach in years.
It's a joint program or something where all the quarterback's coach was to replay.
Yeah, but Joe Judge is the quarterback's coach.
Yeah, but this just feels like a Shakespearean.
Matt Patrice is the offensive line coach. The tight ends coach is the same guy. Wide receivers is Troy Brown and another guy. And running backs is a name I didn't know. But the biggest news I saw out of the Pats training camp today was Cam McGrone, the linebacker that they drafted last year that didn't play. He was on.
Yeah.
I just saw a picture of him, and he was wearing Hightower's number. Patriots uniform, carrying his helmet, so they were in shells at the OTAs, and he was wearing number 54.
Yes, clearly they're expected to
They moved
be
on.
bold in this. And
I don't see Hightower back this year.
Look, we don't.
I think they might just bring him back for a locker room presence.
And don't sleep on Ronnie Perkins too. I mean, remember this guy who was a high pick last year. That was a great draft last year, and now all of a sudden here comes McGrone and Perkins. These are guys who hopefully will contribute to the defense.
And that
They better.
that they had high hopes for as a starter.
It feels like Belichick is just expecting this team to get better with what we have.
Well, obviously, there's guys like the Uchis of the world. He shipped off Winovich, and Uche stayed. It was kind of a Langford Neesmith deal. He had
Uche's still there. I don't know if Uche's still there.
Uche's still there.
Of course he is.
Apparently, Josh Uche. He's still with the Patriots,
Yeah.
but barely. Russ, he didn't do anything last year again. I mean, all of a sudden we've had such high expectations.
The theme here is, Belichick's getting older, and as we know, getting older, you kind of only want to be around people you want to be around, right? And you
You
don't
get that
want
luxury.
and you don't want to put your faith in a bunch of young guys who've never proven themselves. And so, Belichick hires Patricia, Joe Judge, the usual suspects, guys he's comfortable with, and he tends to play veterans, even if they're slow, over young guys. And what I'd love to see this year, I would take a 8-9, 9-8 year, just miss the playoffs if they developed a bunch of young guys that you could be excited about.
Here's what I'd be excited about, Russ. If we went the last half of the season like 6-2.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Like, you remember when the Patriots were ascending? That's
Right.
what we saw,
Right.
right?
Great after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I've no interest in get a bunch of veterans to go 10-7 and lose the first playoff game.
That was the Cam Newton team for sure, right there.
Yeah.
You remember, when Bledsoe came in and you could see us starting to ascend.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
Look, they saw these guys in pads. They had a rookie mini camp. From what I've heard, they like a lot of those guys, and we've talked about that many times. Kevin Booth said the moment they see these guys in pads, they can tell if they're NFL players or not. And they
Right.
should be very happy with the guys they drafted. That goes to me right now. That's wonderful, because they've been just ripped for this draft since they drafted guys.
Mhm.
And
Ripped.
so
When was the last time you saw a draft ripped like this draft was ripped?
we have such low expectations. We're literally not expecting to see any of these guys contribute ever. Is that right?
Well,
When we saw a guy
what's
that was
interesting.
expected to go in the 5th get taken in the 1st.
You know what, Scotty, though, if there's an interesting analogy for someone you mentioned earlier, when the Red Sox took Nick York, everybody ripped him. It was like Belichick taking Cole Strange. Like, Nick York, you could have gotten him in the 4th round. He's blah, 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 small school. Nick York is like a top 25 prospect because, the Red Sox believed in him. And so I hope that that's what happened in this draft, is that these guys, that the Patriots saw these guys play and they're like, look, we don't care if we're taking them 2 rounds early. These are the guys we want to go to war with.
And that 2 rounds early stuff is for people, not football people, that are draft nips that make these artificial orders. They've already got the mock drafts for next year. And if anyone deviates from that, they're wrong. Not, the football people are wrong, not the people who
Right.
make these mock drafts. So you got to take all that with a grain of salt. The proof will be in the pudding when we see this team. I think they should have a better team, because you're going to have a lot of second-year guys, that all that big free agent spending last year, and you're going to have a lot of all those linebackers like McMillan and McGrone that were sitting on the bench last year. They're coming into play.
So
Speaking of draft picks, are we going to see Mel Kiper when he's like 97 years old doing his mock drafts?
Scotty loves Mel Kiper.
With his full head he'll still have a full head of hair all back.
I got one for you, Scotty. So real quick, give super early, but name a player that is going to be surprisingly good this year.
Wow, a player that's going to be surprisingly good on the Patriots.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great one. I think it's going to be Jalen Mills.
Interesting.
I think that Mills.
Another second-year player.
Yeah.
I think that Mills showed some signs, especially as I felt like he was getting better at the end of the season.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Everyone shit the bed in the playoff game,
Yeah.
but I was feeling more and more confident with Mills. I thought he was making plays, and I think now they'll have a key role for him. He'll be in a certain position where he was was he a safety? Was he a DB? So my guy's Mills. Tell me what your guys are.
Who's that little cornerback we drafted? They're the punt returner.
Jones?
Marcus Jones.
Yeah.
I think I've watched a lot of highlight films of him, but he hits like he's 250 pounds.
All right. Yeah.
I think he might. I think he might show something.
Who's your surprising player?
Surprising player would be John Smith, but I think having a much bigger role too. I think Ramondre Stevenson, Jimmy's favorite, might be. But if I'm going to have a surprise in the running backs, it'd be that Pierre Strong playing a role at all.
Really?
He's just like Sony with a little with some something upstairs too. Sony's athleticism with a little smile.
All right, Russ.
Nelson Aguilar. I think Nelson Aguilar is going to have a nice year. I think the offensive line is going to be better. Give Jones a little bit tick more second to get the ball downfield. I think Aguilar is a good player. I think he'll be good in the system.
Everyone's picking second-year guys.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting year. I just hope Belichick doesn't screw it up. No, really. They asked his son Steve what role Belichick was going to play in the offense. He goes, he wears every hat. I'm like, uh-oh. He's not supposed to wear every hat. That doesn't look good when you have more than one hat on. It's going to be very interesting. If the Patriots go 6-11, is Bill Belichick retiring?
I think Belichick will be on the clock if he goes 6-11. I don't know that he'll retire or they'll fire him, but I think if he goes 6-11, that's when Kraft will come in and say, you got 1 year to figure this out. And if we can't, there's no sticking around for Don Shula's record if you're going to win 6 games a year.
Yeah, we're not doing record things. I hate that. That's how we lost with Tim Wakefield in his 203.
Right.
All right, we go to the Bruins, and we have to offer our condolences publicly to Timmy Hoey. We're sorry for your Bruins. You the most rabid season ticket holder of this group. What went wrong?
The other team was a better team. Simple. Where we have our first line of superstars, which gets kind of broken up. I saw Charlie Coyle miss a couple of just wide open nets. He can't put the puck in the ocean, even though he makes some good. We need to get tougher. I think we need to get tougher. During the regular season, you can get away with a lot, boy. But when it comes to the playoffs, the Canes were finishing every body check. They were pounding Charlie McAvoy. They literally beat them into submission, I thought. And you need to get. It's still a tough guy sport. I mean, you need to add a lot of skill in there too. Don't get me wrong, but you need big skilled guys. I think. You get away with a couple of little guys, but overall, you got to go out and go, shoulder to shoulder, toe to toe with some big bodies out there.
Speaking of shoulder, Grizzlick announced yesterday he was playing most of the season. He's going to have surgery.
Yeah.
He's going to be out during the part of this first part of this next year with separated shoulder. The man played NHL hockey with a separated shoulder all season.
Scotty, I did that. I did that one season. It's the worst thing in the world. And I'm 6 feet tall. He's 5'8", $1 something.
And he's playing NHL hockey.
My God.
These guys, they're a different breed.
Mm-hmm.
They are tougher than football players.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
They do things. All right, Patrice Bergeron, answer the question. What is it, Tony Amante? Who's the guy who does with Felger on TV during the playoffs?
Monte.
He's a nice personality, a local kid. I like him, but he decides to throw something out for attention, saying that Bergeron will play for the Canadiens.
And Bergeron denied it yesterday. He was like, I'm not going to another team. Everyone wants like I wasn't even a Canadiens fan growing up. I was a Nordiques fan. Yeah, it was stupid. It was just.
It's funny. My cousin played golf with the Monte last week. I played golf with my cousin yesterday. So he's a great guy.
He seems like a great guy.
I know he just threw that stuff out.
Just a hot take. That's all.
Yeah.
He had to know that wasn't going to go.
Bergeron's not going to do that to his career. He's either going to play. Look, I think he's going to play again. I think he's going to take a look and say, I'm still one of the top centers in hockey. And I think these guys like Tommy Brady know that you want to, it's when you're on top of your game, why retire when you're at the top of your game?
I know some guys who were with Bergeron very early on in training camp and things like that. They said he was the most professional person they've ever been around. Like he had it together when he was a kid. He knew exactly where he was going, how he was going to treat his body. he's in another zone. And like Tom Brady, I think he's got a lot of Tom Brady in him. Like, why leave when the game that you love? I think he loves the sport. He loves it. It's his life. Like, that's his identity. That's who he is,
But he's a free agent, right?
Yeah, but my guess is they'll go year to year. He'll go year to year.
Just
right?
like they did with Chara.
Yeah.
I think that's a fact is a moot point. I think he's a Bruin. No, if he stays as a Bruin, I think that's.
I think they retire his number.
Oh yeah.
God,
yeah.
I mean,
Russ, you have him the second best Bruin.
he's my second. Look, no, he's my second favorite Bruin. Whether he's the second best Bruin, but it's Bobby Orr and Patrice Bergeron, and there's kind of no one close to Bergeron for me. I just think he's just total class act.
O'Reilly doesn't jump into that.
Yeah, I mean, I loved O'Reilly, but O'Reilly was a caricature. He was awesome, but he wasn't the player that Patrice Bergeron is. Good Lord.
Yeah. All right. Before we leave, Sweeney, who's I gotta believe on the hot seat.
His contract's up.
He does not have a contract after like next week. Does
Really?
he? Sounds like he goes.
Interesting.
Cassidy goes.
What's that?
He goes. Cassidy goes.
Oh.
You can't hire another GM who doesn't get to hire their own coach.
Wow.
Joe might be right. Joe might be right.
That would be a travesty. That would be so stupid.
Yeah.
Cassidy's, it's like he's a good hockey coach. But
Russ, it might not have to do with whether he.
The problem is above them. Cam Newton and the seven
Cam Neely,
Jacobs kids. Remember, there's no real ownership there.
Russ, you can be a great coach, but if you've kind of done your thing and worn out your time, it doesn't matter. Like Pierre was a great coach. He got scooped up, and Cassidy would get scooped up in a heartbeat. Sometimes it's just time to make a change.
No, I want Cassidy. I'm with Russ. Cassidy needs to stay. And I don't know, Joe, if they get rid of Sweeney, that doesn't mean the GM will take a Bruins job without having to name the coach. He'll take the job. So if they say they want Cassidy,
they have no one above the GM is the problem with that team. There is no direction. Sweeney probably be fine if they had someone like
Cam Neely's supposed to be that guy. What are you talking about?
Cam doesn't know what he's doing. You know that, and I know that.
I know.
Cam's a chucklehead.
He's the Jacobs valet.
Seabass.
Yeah, and the Jacobs family have given up on the Bruins too. What is it? All 6 or 7 kids own the co-presidents.
Let me tell you this about the Bruins. I'm a season ticket holder for the Bruins. I can flip my tickets any game, any time of the week, and make $1 on it. Right?
I know.
We're like this town, New England. We're like lemmings for the Bruins. We just keep going, no matter what they do. We go. It's the most diehard core sports group in this city.
Only one cup in 50 years, and that proves your point.
And they bang it out every night, Scotty. Every night it's banged out.
Well, that's our show for tonight. Want to thank behind the scenes, of course, Ian. Want to thank the fellas. Please check us out on our website at thegrandstanders.com. And tune again next Wednesday night at 6:30 for another edition of Grandstanders Live. I'm your host, Scott Kerman. Have a great and happy night.